All right, welcome everyone. I'm Elsa Gonzarowski from Lawrence Livermore National Lab. I am Deputy Coordinator of the Better Scientific Software Fellowship Program under working with Taya from LBL. So welcome to our fellowship BoF. We're gonna be meeting a bunch of the fellows today and just talking about the fellowship program and all the great work that they're doing. All right, so our fellowship has kind of reached a critical mass. These are all the fellows that we've had. There's a couple of duplicates in there because we do encourage honorable mentions to reapply as fellows. If you didn't hear the fellowship announcement on Tuesday, the fellowship program is something we run annually, starting applications in August. If you're selected as a fellowship recipient, you get a stipend of money to complete a project. Most of our projects are focused on supporting the ECP community, particularly through software, better software and software engineering practices. So we'll hear a lot about all those amazing projects and what that means from the fellows today. So we're going to go through. I have slides for all the fellows that are attending this year's annual meeting. Not everyone could make it to this session, so some slides we'll just have some information and I'll talk over them. But for the others, most of our fellows and honorable mentions are here today. Please turn on your camera if you feel comfortable when you're speaking, since I think Zoom will highlight you. I know I'm not doing that, so it's okay if you don't want to. Speak for 1 to 2 minutes. We're going to start with our current 2022 class and go down. This information, is going to come, a lot of it fast and furious. So feel free to write down questions in the chat, or if you hear something that's intriguing and maybe you don't get to write it down, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'm happy to do the networking and make the connections. So I hope you enjoy. We should have some time for questions at the very end. So either put them in chat so you remember, or just hold them to the end and then we can have some discussion. So starting with our brand new 2022 class, I will note some of the folks are kind of grayed out here. Those are the folks that were not able to attend this year's annual meeting, but they are doing cool and awesome things. But let's go ahead and start with Ritu.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be part of this vibrant community. And I look forward to developing new connections on various topics, especially on the topic that is very near and dear to my heart, which is optimizing I/O for better performance and focusing on checkpointing and restart. So to answer the question, what attracted me to the fellowship? I think it was the opportunity to network with other colleagues in the community who care about developing better scientific software, and also to bring visibility to the topic of doing optimal I/O in various types of applications, be it AI, machine learning, or when we're doing checkpointing and developing new applications, so that I/O is a first-class citizens rather than an afterthought. That was my motivation behind applying for this fellowship. To develop more awareness about the basics for doing optimal I/O. And as part of this fellowship, I would be creating videos, articles, blogs, examples, and exercises to demonstrate how to optimize I/O in scientific applications. And I would be also developing some content like the basic 101 content on how to develop applications that can checkpoint and restart natively, so that we're not depending on external libraries and software for checkpointing and restart processes. So there are some wonderful applications like Flash applications, for Flash astrophysics application, for example, that already does checkpointing and restart beautifully in serial and in parallel mode. So how can we develop our own applications like Flash, for example, that have these fault tolerant mechanism embedded in them is important, I feel, and that's what I would be focusing. And for continued engagement, I would love to find collaborators to partner on future work related to fault tolerance and optimizing I/O. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ritu. Up next, we have Rob Latham.
Oh, great. I'm glad everybody could join the IO hour because apparently that's the, if we extrapolate from 2 points to infinity, right? We're all going to talk about IO today. No, that's not how it works. But I also spend a lot of time talking about IO and helping applications work with IO. And for many years, we've been doing this IO tutorial at supercomputing, and we've been doing presentations at ATPESC. I see a few familiar faces in this list. I think you've seen at least one of my presentations. BSSw will help me go a little deeper on all that. Right? So this is great. A very nice segue from what Ritu's working on. And then once you've done your checkpointing, right? How do you know if it's good or not? Well, you can get a benchmark number, but there's a lot involved in that, right? So we have a variety of tools and libraries that you can apply to your application at all different levels of the software stack, and that can be a little bit overwhelming. So we'll kind of walk through there, and we call it IO sleuthing, because sometimes a lot of the fun is trying to figure out which piece of the puzzle is contributing to your disappointing IO numbers. IO numbers are always disappointing, right? The vendors tell you X, but you always get half of X or less than that. So there's always something to investigate, something to explore. And I'm hoping that we can plant the seed for this sort of ongoing exploration as a community.
All right, thank you, Rob. I do love IO personally, so I'm glad I could work with both of you. All right, up next, we have Julia.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and it's so neat to hear what everybody's working on and to be a part of this. So I'm a marine ecologist, and I founded a program called OpenScapes to help other research teams like myself transition into the world of data science, open science, and software engineering. So we really think about it like this graphic where we're mentoring teams on that outer edge to help tackle their questions through practices around robust analyses, streamlined collaboration, expanded communication, and kindness and inclusion, really focusing on the problems that they are trying to deliver on. And that's all underpinned by existing open source tools. So we introduce them to the idea of GitHub and version control, to the idea of R Markdown and Quarto and Jupyter Notebooks, the idea of this expanding their imagination in terms of publishing, communication, open data, and beyond. So this is a program I founded as a Mozilla Fellow in 2018, and now get to focus more attention on the curriculum in 2022 with the BSSw Fellowship. So I'm improving an existing curriculum that we've now taught 10 times and have iterated with teams as we teach, but really haven't been able to keep up with the sort of open curriculum that we want other folks to build from as self-paced learning. So that's what I will be focusing on during the fellowship, and really excited to connect and promote and amplify and really include more researchers into this whole landscape of open source software and better scientific software. So thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I love that you have kindness on your slide. All right, up next we have Nitin. We can't hear you, Nitin.
Too excited, right? So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fine. Okay, thank you. So I'm Dr. Nitin Sukita. I'm basically an associate professor in Department of Computer Science and director of Cybersecurity Center at University of Pennsylvania. I've been working in the area of mitigating risk of software vulnerabilities with best practices and tools for secure software development of past couple of years now. So the goal here is, if you see my slides, pretty like new, because this landscape is pretty new, and that's the whole goal of bringing in new community members and participating and trying to get more collaborations via the fellowship, and having wonderful people attached to the program, where we will be working on designing and new modules for securing the software developer lifecycle. So the goal here is to conduct a workshop, which basically has components, which will include evaluating design practices for creating secure software, appropriate software processes for managing secure software, threat modeling, quality assuring testing using both static and dynamic analysis tools. This workshop, which we are planning to work on, will be offered both virtually and on-site location with stakeholders from both industry and academia. Moreover, the training modules which of the workshop will be made available to the community at large by open source collaboration platforms. We expect the research and the output of this participation to enable the community members to analyze the security of scientific software using threat models such as DREAD and STRIDE. We also want threat models to be explored more to aid in identifying risks that often cost organizations thousands of dollars in patching vulnerabilities coming from unsecured code. The workshop will not also, only introduce the local businesses and software developers from various domains with best practices for developing secure software, but also will facilitate the hands-on experience with penetration testing tools to mitigate threats such as losing businesses and sensitive information due to a variety of vulnerabilities. So we're trying to enable development of trustworthy and secure software development and try to have more security inbuilt in this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Karan.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm happy to be a fellow for 2022 year. My focus for my fellowship is going to be enabling complex scientific computations and efficient use of HPC resources with scientific workflows. What I've noticed in my career of over past 20 years is that even though the term scientific workflows is pretty widely known, especially amongst computer scientists, I think there are inroads to be made within domain sciences. So that's what I'm going to focus on as part of my fellowship. So scientific workflows essentially allow scientists to conduct a series of computational tasks, and these tasks can run on resources distributed over the internet. As you change some tasks, it introduces automation and replace manual handoffs. So on the right, I have like simple examples of workflow building blocks, which can be used to create fairly complex scientific workflows. But the message which I want to give to the wider community is that if you're trying to run anything on a HPC resource, think about your pipeline as a workflow, and there are a lot of derived benefits from it. So as part of my fellowship, my goals are going to be developing training materials, focus on workflow lifecycle and challenges, prepare to develop easy to understand Jupyter notebooks that leverage the Pegasus workflow management system to submit to resources such as Open Science Grid and local HPC centers. And the training materials will also focus on using application containers in workflows and having them deployed on demand as your workflows execute. The primary target audience, which I hope to focus, is domain scientists that currently use or are considering using HPC. In terms of like my dissemination of the work I'm doing, I already have a tutorial accepted at the upcoming PERC 22 conference. I submitted a proposal for eScience 2022 also, and I have plans to conduct a seminar at NERSC, followed by development of NERSC-specific training materials, which will enable users to submit workflows using Pegasus easily on NERSC resources. And that's it. Thank you very much. I look forward to interacting with all of you in the coming year.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Sarah.
Hi, everyone, from Syracuse University. I will soon be in Tucson, Arizona, starting a faculty position there in the iSchool, School of Information Studies. So a lot of my work has come from an intersection, I would say, of library and information science, maybe strangely, as well as user experience design, in addition to using Jupyter notebooks for educational purposes, but also for large scale neuroimaging data and also big metadata. So some of the draft, I liked how you characterized that, the draft for potentially the next application of this project is trying to explicate the tacit knowledge that's embedded in a lot of these workflows, these pipelines. And so we have this model for drawing down big metadata, primarily from large scale research data repositories. So I don't know who here has heard of GeneBank, probably a lot of you, in the biomedical realm. And there's a lot of good data there for social, behavioral, economic sorts of applications, but also very interesting for bibliometricians, in addition to doing things like transcriptomics and some of these more computationally intensive classic uses of genomic data. So what we have in this project was an initial sort of prototype for what it looks like if we're going to be modeling big metadata. And of course, metadata accompanies a lot of data sets that are all the rage, especially in genomics, but expanding to other contexts such as the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Science Research. What does it look like to automate workflows for social science data outside of these traditional contexts? So what we've done so far is to map these conceptual workflows and then to codify them in Jupyter Notebook, as well as to try to make a couple VM instances work together relatively well. Going from here, hopefully leveraging Cyverse, which came out of the iPlant collaborative at the University of Arizona to do a little bit of this in an HPC kind of flavor. And then one sort of aspect of the future work of this will be to tackle a bit of a sticky problem in library and information science, which is codifying paradata. So this connects back to the tacit knowledge that is often sort of hidden in these workflows. And so codifying that, seeing what kind of tacit knowledge are required, and then codifying paradata. And if you don't know, paradata is sort of processual information, and doing that in a way that is not too burdensome for the researcher. And I could, of course, talk about this for 4 hours, but I won't. So very nice to meet you all, and hope to connect further.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Up next, we have William.
So yeah, thanks, Elsa. My name is William Godoy. I'm very glad to see all the ideas. I met some of the past awardees before during my career. I'm very happy to be somehow part of the BSSw Fellowship, as an honorable mention. The reason I apply is because I've been working with ECP and the DOE for the past 6 years, working the Adios project first, now in different projects, started in application of QNC Pack, and now recently I've been looking into the Julia language as an alternative, because the world of programming these machines have become very complex. So I'm looking forward to talking to all of you. I know some of you, like I mentioned, and I'm in Addis group, for example, and Oak Ridge National Lab, and I'll be happy to chat afterwards. So congratulations to the awardees, by the way. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Up next, we have Raphael.
Hi, my name is Raphael Motafort, and I work at the National Renewable Energy Lab. I'm a research software engineer in the National Wind Technology Center, and I primarily work in wind turbine and wind farm dynamics and controls modeling and software development. And so my topic in the BSSw application for this past year was mostly around encouraging software quality from the people who are asking us to develop the software. So for a national lab, this tends to be our Department of Energy program managers. And the idea was basically that we, at least in my world, we tend to go by form follows function. So we prioritize what the software is doing, but not so much how the software is built and constructed. And I wanted to, for years have been trying to find ways to encourage and incentivize people within my groups to flip that around, or at least balance out the two so that form and function are both considered equally as important. And that's been really fun to think about. And I've been doing this over the past year with our DOE program managers. We've been kind of incentivizing things differently. However, I recently attended the USRSE workshop, which is the US Research Software Engineers Organization workshop, and had a lot of discussions about designing software generally and our processes for this. And so increasingly, I'm becoming more interested in how we, as a community, design our software so that it's not just open source, because that's really a license and whether the source code is accessible, but rather open contribution. So how easy is it for other people to come in and contribute to a particular code base? And this just comes out of kind of some of my own frustrations with trying to manage just a lot of different code contributions and feeling like, why isn't this fitting into the paradigm that I've established? Well, I think it's largely because I'm not communicating these things. So yeah, that's another area that I've been exploring. And if anyone's interested in this, I'd love to talk about it some more. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Qisheng. We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, my internet got disconnected. So my name is Yusen Wu. I'm assistant professor at the University of Tennessee, and my research focus on GIS remote sensing, cloud computing, and open source software development. And I will develop a couple of open source packages that have been widely used by the community. And as you can see from my GitHub, got over 8,000 stars, and I also cloud computing and interactive mapping, geospatial analysis. So if you like, you can check out my YouTube channel, and I also actively share things on LinkedIn and also Twitter. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Looking forward to connecting with you.
Great, thank you. All right, that was our class of 2022. Thank you to all the fellows. We're definitely looking forward to your projects, and to the honorable mentions. We're looking forward to connecting with you as well. All right, moving along. Next we have Chase Million, who I saw dialed in earlier, but it seems like they're not connected at the moment. So Chase was one of our fellows from the class of 21. And this was a brief slide that he had from last year. His project was focused on software development, scientific research, and really improving the project management for those folks. All right, I'm going to move right along. Up next, we have Amy Roberts.
Hi, everyone. So my work as a BSSw Fellow has focused on building a different sort of entry point to understanding version control for people who are just starting software development. And so what specifically I'm focusing on is making stories, and stories that are illustrated with art to sort of access the emotional aspect of stories more, to create resources for people who need to learn these really important skills. So that's my deal, is story-based version control resources. So please get in touch with me if you are interested in using any of the materials or testing any of the materials. or just want to talk, or you want, for example, a particular material to exist so that you can use it.
Great, thank you so much. Up next, we have Marianne.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marianne Leung. I'm with a nonprofit organization called Sustainable Horizons Institute. And my BSSw Fellowship has been focused on increasing developer productivity through innovation and diversity and normalizing inclusion. And so kind of the motivation behind my work is just that we know that diversity increases innovation. There's research demonstrating this. And the fact that we have some really urgent workforce challenges facing us. And so I've been doing a lot of work to help expand the pipeline of the workforce, as well as cultivating teams that are more diverse and exploring how to promote inclusion such that we make it that it's the norm. It's normal to be inclusive. And so some of the work that I've been doing, I just kind of listed some of the highlights. I've been, organizing various sessions to try to, understand what people have been doing in this space and gathering best practices and lessons learned. So I've organized a panel session at the SIAM CSC 21 conference on looking at diversity and inclusion for careers in CSE and kind of what the challenges and best practices are. This was a really neat panel. It was 3 parts. We had a group of people who were from underrepresented backgrounds who shared their stories about kind of what was helpful and what wasn't. And then we had a group of people who were at the strategic level at organizations trying to implement changes. And then we had kind of a third part, which was interactive between all of them. And we learned quite a lot about some of the successes and the challenges in this work. I also organized a session at the SIAM Parallel Processing Conference this year on current trends and future impacts in terms of inclusivity in HPC. I was honored to be the keynote for the Lawrence workshop, which is part of the international RSC organization. It was organized by the UK RSC. So there's a workshop that happened last month, and I gave a keynote, and then my keynote, because the workshop is, they wanted to do it kind of hybrid, so I did it as a webinar through the UK RSC, and that was really setting forth some of my own ideas about how to normalize inclusion by embracing difference. And then I was involved in the OSCAR, the DOE OSCAR workshop on scientific software development and use, and wrote and had a paper accepted on basically transformative profiles in research software teams and how to use DEI for collaboration and innovation. And then I'm organizing another session this summer, which will be at the PAST 22 conference, which will be in Switzerland. And this one is a really exciting session that I'm really personally looking forward to, because it's about looking at how to advance computing across the globe by embracing DEI and looking at what the different challenges are. So we've brought together 8 different speakers from across the world who will be talking about different efforts that focus on best practices, challenges, and we also have my co-organizer is someone who is a sociologist that is going to bring in the kind of organizational change aspects to all of this work. So and that's in a nutshell a little bit about what I've been doing, and I'm happy to work with anyone in the BSSw Fellowship organization who's interested in these topics.
Great, thank you, Marianne. Lots of work going on. Up next, we have Keith.
Hello, I am Keith. I was a little surprised there. I wasn't sure. I'm a computer systems engineer at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. I guess the top thing that I'm really interested in seeing if a change can be made is kind of what I listed here as my axe to grind, is that the belief that in order for us to have sustainable scientific software, we need to have sustainable scientific software careers. And so one of the things that I'm trying to work on is start kind of an LBL chapter of resource software engineers, which could be good because the title for us at LBL is computer systems engineers, and try to just raise the awareness, build a community, and support people who do software engineering, software development, or software development adjacent like work, and try to promote their careers, build a community, and raise their awareness, as opposed to the scientist track, which often gets a lot more attention in national labs and university contexts. I want to try to do that at all levels, not just early career, but mid and late career, as well as take advantage of some of the other things that we're talking about in terms of diversity, promoting people's careers. In Berkeley here, I know it's bad everywhere, but we lose a lot of people to industry. And I think there's plenty of opportunities to highlight the unique aspects of working in a research context at a national lab or a university, and that I think if we could promote that, we would have better careers for people. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Oop. Lost my spot there. All right, Addie, you're next. We can't hear you, Addie.
My bad, I was muted. Thank you for saying something. Good evening if you're in EST, and good afternoon if you're out west. My name is Addie Malvi Thakur. I'm the group leader for the software engineering group in the computer science and math division at Oak Ridge National Lab. I have had a good fortune to meet a lot of you either in workshop or in other ECP related things. If we haven't connected, please, I'm open to connecting. Please do reach out. Some of the things that I care about most are patterns, practices, and processes to make scientific software better. That's sort of like the core central theme of my group. I'm very interested in all research and connection regarding that. So if you are working on that, please do connect. Did also identify with something Raphael said about organizing our output better. I think that also connects into like something Keith just mentioned about how software is viewed at National Lab and some of the other research entities. So definitely passionate about working to get software the parity and recognition that it deserves in an environment like ours. So if you're passionate about that, again, I would be very happy to talk to you. I'd be very glad to connect. Some of the things that I'm working on now is how would we do science in the future? So a federated workflow system, federated identification, connecting edge devices to big core computing machines and then to other edge instruments. So if you are working on any of the interconnected science workflows, that's something I'm super passionate about and working on currently. Very happy to meet everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That was it for our class of 2021. They're just wrapping up their projects, and they've really done some great work. Moving right along to the class of 2020. Up first is Nasir.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Lots of familiar faces. And congratulations to the batch of 2022. Welcome to the team. So I have, so my BSSw focus is on testing the scientific and research software. That's like non-deterministic research software, or the software that does not have a test oracle or difficult to get a test oracle, things like that. So I have done a community survey already to the research software engineers, and I reported the results on a journal paper. Hopefully it will be out very soon. Yeah, it's getting close. And then, yeah, you will have access to all of that results. And then I'm proposing tutorials on testing, especially for research software, so that we have better sustainable and better quality of the research softwares. Yeah, I think I'm at some point now to contact many of you. You may end up getting an email from me. But yeah, it would be nice to reconnect, and I'm very happy to have new conversation and meet new people. So please let me know if you have any interest in testing, especially on research software. I'd be happy to connect. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thanks for attending the annual meeting. Next is David Buma, who is not here in this session. He is attending the annual meeting. He actually gave a talk yesterday about Caliper and Spot, some of the tools that he works on at Lawrence Livermore National Lab in the software technology space. He's, I think, one of the main developers on Caliper, which is a tracing tool. So he works to help applications trace and profile their codes. Moving along. Next, we have David Rogers.
Hi, everybody. I guess I wasn't able to distill what I'm doing into bullet points. When I put in my fellowship application in 2019, I was moving over or in the process of getting started at ORNL, and then it turned out that that became an entry point for me to go and work with the Ideas ECPE team. So even though I didn't get the fellowship, I got some extra work to do over here at the lab, which turned out to be great because there are good people in the Ideas ECP project who helped put together a lot of tutorials and run Birds of a Feather session, and have really been kind of good examples of ways that you can get all of these initiatives going. And we keep all of our stuff on GitHub so that you can see the tutorial materials, but also you can see how they're put together and kind of behind the scenes. And when you want to run tutorials, there's software carpentry, and then there's our stuff, which is GitHub Jekyll based, and all of those are kind of good pointers for just design of materials to build communities. Let's see, there's a bunch of stuff on this slide that talks about my work in computational chemistry and kind of my passion for building multi-scale methods that are able to look nice computationally, but also do what we want them to do. So kind of more powerful, more useful, more general software. So I just like being able to categorize all that software and talk about it and kind of plan for how we can make it work even better.
Great, thank you, David. That was our 2020 class. 2019 class, we'll go quickly. Ignacio, again, is not attending this session, but he is actually presenting some of, I think it's related to his fellowship project about floating point software. He has a presentation here at the annual meeting. So that is kind of one path forward for those fellows with projects. You could even bring them to the annual meeting to present. Okay, back to the first class, best class, if I do say so, class of 2018. We have Jeff Carver.
Hello, thanks. Yep, so my BSSw project is on a contemporary pure code review for research software, and I actually talked a bunch about this in a session earlier today. So if you're interested in that, you can go back, and I think it was recorded, so that's all there. But basically, I've developed an interactive tutorial that I've given a number of places on code review, and be happy to give that other places. So if there's people that are interested in having a code review tutorial in their organization, please feel free to contact me. And I'm also interested in kind of working more directly with teams on pure code review to help them either understand what they're doing or define the process better, or identify what should be on a checklist or different things like that. So anything related to pure code review, or actually software engineering in general, is the things that I care about. So I will keep mine short. So thanks, and I've definitely enjoyed the interaction, and I've enjoyed the connections with the community as having been part of this. So thanks to the organizers of this for sure.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Up next, we have Daniel Katz, who also wasn't able to join us, but I think is attending other sessions at the annual meeting. Daniel ended up giving his tutorial, a tutorial about his fellowship project called Software Citation Today and Tomorrow, and you can find that online under the Ideas Productivity, the webinar and the slides. So some really interesting work and a very successful fellowship project. After that, we have Mark. I believe Mark is here. Oh, I guess Mark is not here, but is at the annual meeting. So if you see him around, please do connect with Mark. Okay. Final, I put myself at the end of the list. I was actually a Better Scientific Software honorable mention in the initial class of 2018. So instead of really doing a fellowship project, instead I joined the Ideas ECP team. Around 2019, I started off by working on the productivity and sustainability improvement planning sub-team. So that was a team to develop a lightweight, agile software improvement methodology and bring that kind of agile methodology to the Ideas teams and work with those teams to help improve their software engineering practices and get up to speed on some of the modern practices that software engineers are doing out in the real world. I transitioned last year or at the start of FY22 to the Better Scientific Software Fellows sub-team and community organizer. I've just been promoted to deputy by HEA. So I'm focused now on building the community within the fellowship program and building connections with our fellows to the broader ECP community. So with that, I want to thank everyone for presenting their slide and getting through with great time. We had 15 minutes for questions. I've seen that there's been some awesome chat going on. But if anyone has a particular question or something they want to raise, or if any of the current 2022 fellows have questions for previous years, that would be great as well. We're happy to break out into discussion now.
We were chatting a little bit earlier about the list of products that the fellows have developed, although I'm not necessarily sure that the entirety of what we're doing is going to be summarized by a products list, but maybe we could have some discussion around the ways that people are kind of talking about connections within the community, or the way that the fellowship might have a community face that shows people kind of the totality of the things we're doing.
Yeah, and I think I've heard that question a couple of times during the annual meeting. Is there one place to see everything that all the fellows have done? And there's, like I said, there's currently not, but we could certainly make a page on the BSSw.io website that really condenses kind of the artifacts. And I think it would be helpful for those who are applying for future years to really see what were successful projects and just be able to look at them all in kind of one place. So HEA has already done the work of putting the artifacts online. We can just make it a little bit easier to find onto one page for sure.
So David, maybe bright spots for fellows, huh?
This is an idea that I actually want to pitch to anybody who is in ECP who wants to write a BSSW blog article. So actually, BSSw.io is constantly looking for people who want to write about better scientific software development practices. If you have something that fits in that area, then definitely do follow the process, which is send an abstract or just a title of your idea as a pull request to the BSSw.io website. We have a specific series that I've been trying to create articles for, but which I welcome other people to help, which is highlighting the work of ECP teams on specific sustainability and productivity topics. So, take CI, for instance. There is an article in progress on just highlighting some teams' experience with implementing CI and how it changed their process. And so if we have volunteers who want to do that kind of survey work, maybe like investigative computational journalism, then let me know or talk to the BSSw.io people.
Yeah, David, I actually have an article that might fit in that bright spot kind of framing. I sort of worked with the team to help an ECP team to help them transition their documentation from a LaTeX offline documentation to online read the docs based documentation. And it's a hard article to write because it's really getting into the nitty gritty of just their one experience, but as a bright spot and really something to be applauded for the effort that they went through to really make their whole documentation more usable for the community, I think is a great angle.
All right, well,
I'm going to follow up on
you earned a follow-up email.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a question for the community. So this is the BSSw Fellowship community. You know, we're looking at you for expertise, but then also I think there are things that you also want to learn. And I've kind of fell short with some activities, like maybe a presentation on what is DOE. You know, are there things like that we could present to the community, to all of you, that would help you understand the kind of broader ecosystem? So we could do things like, what is DOE? What is NSF? Maybe a working session on contributing to BSSw.io. Are there things like that anyone is interested in, or are those things you would be interested in? Or you don't have time? Should we do activities, William?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ask something similar, because every time I'm new to a group, you know, scientists, I always ask the same question, and Johannes and Adi might know, because we're part of two different efforts. Is there any interest to have something broader, like, you know, a position paper? Because it seems like everybody has its own definition of what better software is. So if we come together as a big community, have some sort of, you know, paper, that's how scientists communicate. We can pass it to, you know, management, our colleagues, and, you know, that was kind of one of the motivations for being part of this initiative, because I see that many of you from the past have been working independently, isolated, right? We work in silos. But this is a great opportunity to have all of us come together and say, hey, this is our vision, that the current incarnation of, you know, fellows or can say about software, because it varies a lot, you know, and hopefully will help the community, you know, understand where we're coming from and what is our view, what's the importance of, for example, diversity and inclusion, like Marianne mentioned, what David said, you know, like a series of articles, everyone in your field. And Jeff, I know Jeffrey Carver has a big investment in education and training, you know. So putting all these things together makes it much more powerful when, you know, we are all one voice. So that's kind of my 2 cents for that. So what does everybody think?
So I think one of the targets should also be funding agencies. Sort of fits into what what really drives a lot of the neglect of software, is that it's not really seen on par with, let's say, a fancy spectrometer. Even though if you think about it, if you have a fancy piece of software, you've really invested a lot of money already in developing it. But why would a funding agency fund new equipment and then not fund software engineers, or even just the act of maintaining software?
And I agree with you, Johan. My personal view is when people talk about software, especially in HPC or very, very specialized science, it's closer to a specialized equipment than actual, you know, software. It becomes so niche so quickly that, you know, it leads to multiple interpretations, of what better software is. So that's why I think a position paper, as you know, because we're working on another one, might help that, articulate that, what we're trying to say.
Another paper on my to-do list.
Yeah, of course, it will take a couple of years, but at least we're trying. We know that. So, for example, if I have to if I have to answer the question to someone that comes and ask me why is DEI important in software, I will point that person to that paper. Why is training important, or why is why is the role important in a national lab or in academia? I'm yet to see that kind of paper. Maybe it's a scatter around, but it will be good to use this forum to come up with such a fan.
Yeah, that sounds really great. And it's something that we should maybe consider adding to the BSSW.io website of certain like go-to papers, or, might be. So we can pitch it to the BSSW.io folks.
Yeah. Okay. And scientists in general, because the first question, I'm also conditioned to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, so you're talking about this topic. Oh, do you have a paper I can look at? You know?
Definitely. All right, well, we're going to call on Alan. So Alan, if you don't know, you're going to have to introduce your background because
so
you're important here.
I don't know about that, but I'm a program director at NSF and the Office of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure, and we're actually the ones who are funding from the NSF side the fellows. So that's a good thing. We've been pushing for that for a while. But what I wanted to point out is people were talking about programs for software, better software, and there are programs at NSF actually led by my office. There's a program that's so I think the idea is you need to talk with people at the funding agencies to find sort of these opportunities, and that's sort of the high level picture. And I don't want to get into that anymore, but I actually had a question for everybody, especially the fellows who were funded a year or two ago or more. And in terms of how what's been the impact on sort of you in terms of the fellowships and even the honorable mentions and becoming a part of the community. I think that's something, those stories actually are really important, because that's how we get support back from the agencies to continue these activities. I think it's both at DOE and at NSF, which I think is really important, but I'm not the only one who gets to decide how to spend money. So.
Those also might make very good contributions to the BSSW.io site. If you're thinking of coming up with your story, think about writing a blog article or a short article.
Thanks, Pat. Keith?
Hi, I assume nobody wants to answer Alan's question, I guess.
I
wanted to follow on kind of what Johannes touched on, which is maybe trying to make the observation as to what our relationship with software and software development is, and I think that can vary a lot depending upon what your role is. For some people, software is it's a tool that just needs to accomplish a job, and they don't necessarily want to hear about the details of it or the problems of it. But then there's other people for whom the developing of the software is their core activity, and I think that those people having different relationships with it can help inform how best to support it, or in what way, what expectations you can have about its support and communication between those people who have those different relationships with software. I'll just leave it at that, but I think that's an important distinction for us to make. We might be able to promote that here.
Okay, Amy, do you want to?
Oh yeah, so I have a bunch of comments. Feel free to mute me. I'm also going to try to keep it short. I just like having a backup plan. So I wanted to address actually some of Alan's comment, but I also wanted to say that A couple of people have mentioned funding and understanding the funding agencies and how helpful that would be. And I think that, you know, when I think about all of the projects that people are working on and this idea of, you know, the effort that's needed, I think that one of the things that you mentioned in the earlier workshop was that it took 2 years for someone to develop a really good introduction to HPC. And that feels like spot on to me. Right, like a lot of this work, this integration work, making it easier for the end users is just extraordinarily time consuming and therefore expensive. Anyway, so I think that understanding not only how the funding agencies work, but also like how does grant funding for some of this work function? Like in general, how does money work in this ecosystem? And I mean, I know that no one's going to like put me on the financial board of all of the universities, right? But understanding how different university funding systems work would be super useful. Like, for example, right now I have a grant and I'm paying for a partial fraction of a research programmer at SDSC. I didn't even know that was possible until he reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do that. But like that totally changes my grant programming because I can't fund an individual research software engineer. And kind of the same for like the Science Gateways Community Institute, right? Like they have these, so like what are these funding models and how can we understand that ecosystem and work within it to sort of build the future that we envision where software is really supported and users can really get what they need. Anyway, so I want to understand how all the money flows. I promise I'm not crazy. I mean, maybe I am. Anyway, so the other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is a follow-up to Alan's question, and is that this opportunity for me has been, I can't really overstate how much it has sort of validated and supported my efforts in this space. You know, it's having access even to just the ECP meeting has been amazing for a number of reasons. So one of the really significant benefits has been talking to all of the other fellows because I'm focused on, you know, version control is one of the entry points that people need to sort of overcome before they can start working in the developer space. But all of the things that the champions are doing, but like all of the things that the fellows are doing are really relevant to me. And so just even knowing about their work has been really helpful. And I've been able to connect, other people who are doing software work to them. And so that's been really great. So for example, I have a friend who is trying to develop a proposal for a nuclear physics niche program. And I was like, you know, you should reach out to the following BSSw fellows, and just the fact that like I knew them, like that was just because I was able to attend this meeting. And then the other thing is like being able to wander around the hall and look at posters is just phenomenal, like both from a science perspective and from a, you know, people are working on this. And these are additional contacts that I can use within my collaboration when I need help with containerization, data movement, you know, IO, what's it called? You know, understanding how much IO we're using and how much time that takes. Like all of these, it's just an enormous amount of resources that's extremely helpful because it's hard to find this information in other places. The other thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to pick a little bit on the NSF. So I'm sorry, Alan, but also like it was incredibly hard to get program officers to respond to me. And so this gives me access to a system that otherwise I didn't have access to. And that's been also very helpful.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, it helps to know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So we are your network all around. So we'll do David and Elsa. I jumped in, so if you want to, you're leading the session. I didn't know what happened to you.
No,
Okay.
I know it's the top of the hour. I was catching up on chat and I got a little lost in the chat. So I know it's the top of the hour, so if folks have to go, I want to just thank everyone again. We are going to capture the chat. I know this whole session is recorded, so if you do drop out early, I'm going to try to stay and listen to anyone who has comments. Please keep them coming. And then, yeah, we're going to keep having these discussions. And I really thank you all for attending and really making this a successful BoF session. David, you
Yeah,
had your hand
sorry.
up. Do you want to say
Seems that
something?
we ran out of time, but my comments were pretty much what I typed into the chat, that this conversation is really interesting, and just having access, like everyone says, to kind of this group with the ideas of how do we make the software more sustainable is something that I've seen is pretty impactful. And I want to try and brainstorm a little bit more about ways we can collaborate more than just at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Unless anyone has parting comments, Haya, do you want to say anything else?
Just thanks, everyone. And, it's so exciting. I'm so excited at this time with all the community growth, and that Elsa is here to help grow this. And my dog is really unhappy in the background, so I'm going to shut up. Bye.
Okay,
everyone.
well, thank you, everyone. And we will be sure to connect with you again. Thank you so much.
Elsa, are you going to copy the chat? Because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
The chat gets automatically saved with the
Oh, okay, cool.
Robert, can you make sure to download a version on your computer, or because I did a lot of private messaging with folks telling them that they're up next. So if you could download a copy just so we have a backup copy with the recording, that would be very helpful.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.